To me, this film is the first true movie version of dubstep. It's the ultimate remix.
Take the risk, because if you're not willing to be ridiculed, then what are you doing?
I love that.
Right, there's a version of that movie that you probably have seen that probably would be at Sundance. Tell you exactly what it is. It's handheld. It's got like, you know exactly even what it looks like, right? But that movie is there in that movie, right? And so if you don't have that through line, there's nothing.
I find that every 10 years or so, there's a new piece of art that comes along and just totally changes the game. And for me, it was last night's Academy Award winner, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
What's happening?
So I sat down with Freddie Wong, who has a history of making weird, VFX-heavy, genre-bending videos to get his take on the movie. Let's talk about Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. There's this interview clip where the Daniels are clearly very intentional about the look and feel of every single universe that's in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
We're going to make sure that each universe has a color palette and a musical score and even down to aspect ratio and film quality of how we're going to shoot
the lens choice, everything was designed around genre.
That's interesting because I think we're at the point, I think Tarantino was very early on this, but the use of genre itself as a paintbrush in film, I think is really interesting. And, I think it's almost like you could argue like even a postmodernism, that it's like taking now, it's absorbing the sort of effects of various genres. And I think a lot of that stuff is very invisible, right? Like, and like, to me, it's always fun because it's like, to what degree does the average person recognize any of that other than this looks different, right? And to me, I think that like what distinguishes like real artists types from the people who are just caring about the end result, both of which I think are legitimate sort of approaches to it, is like, yeah, but if you're willing to go the extra 10 steps to be like, no, we want to do it like this because I shoot anamorphic for this because that's what, like that level, I think, it may not be obvious or it may not be even apparent. But then again, that's you satisfying yourself with the craft, right? Like that to me, like if you told the Daniels, it's like, yeah, nobody, like we did scientific testing, we did brain scans of everyone watching this, of film fans, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody can tell. They just can tell that this scene here looks a little bit different. They don't know that you're doing this. Like they would still do it. They still do it because that's like, no, but that's being true to what you're trying to accomplish.
And he says that, right? He's like, we didn't want to do parody. Yeah. We didn't want to make fun of these things. We wanted to explore the things that we loved about those films and actually learn and get better in those areas.
Rather than going into parody, which I think was almost our first impulse, we were like, no, if I'm going to be working in these worlds, I want to do things that I'm really excited to try, things I don't know if we can pull off.
It very much came from a personal desire to do those things. I think what I love about genre as a paintbrush, which is what you just said, is to me this film is the first true movie version of dubstep. It's the ultimate remix. It's pulling a little bit of dance music, some bass samples, some 1960s stuff, some 80s funk, some 90s grunge, which dubstep, right, you'll hear 4 seconds of a dubstep song and it's just a rage sample and then a dance sample and then MJ and then it's just like cultural nostalgia.
It's not blended either, right? It's very distinct in that way. It's segmented.
You get segmented moments of these memories and time periods in our life, and to see them accelerated and produced in such a narrow, compressed portion of time is this incredibly emotional feeling. And this film accomplished that, from my perspective. It was a visual and narrative representation of what dubstep has now been doing for a few years.
And by the way, I'll even argue too that like probably the effect of that movie, if you showed that movie to someone, say like 30 years ago, right, it's probably the same if you show the music fan 30 years ago, it's like, hey, this is where music's going. They'd be like, what the hell is this? I have no idea what's going on. The amount of, I think, visual literacy that is necessary, even to process, right, what they did and Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Even at a base level, it's something that we already have, right? Something that we're already familiar with, to a degree to which, like, it's almost like where else can we go from here? Like, how much more, like, hyper compressed can we possibly get at this point?
And that is the feeling that I get. What you just described is the feeling I get maybe every 10 years. The last time I got it, the last time I got it was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, okay, Gondry nailed it. Filmmaking is done. We can all go home. This is the greatest film that can ever be made. It is the most creative film that can ever be made. And then fucking 10 years later, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I was like, this is
we
the
got
next
so
level.
There's still places to go.
There's still places to go. But that feeling of like, how can we go beyond this is what I get when somebody, some incredible creative person, truly stands on the shoulders of giants.
If it does feel like to me, and I feel this in a number of different disciplines, where it feels like we're on the very start of an acceleration that's starting to happen, because I think like if you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once, like fundamentally, right, you need exposure to world cinema in a way that was incredibly difficult during the VHS era and only began to kind of start in the DVD era, right? Like if you were really, really hardcore, DVDs and VHS was kind of where you could start to kind of find that. But like prior to that, good luck, right? Good luck finding European cinema, Japanese cinema, Hong Kong cinema without really either traveling there or having like a really deep knowledge of it. But the casual sort of observer now, we have such access to such a wide range of things that, I think that's why you get to have such visually dense works, or even, auditorially dense works in terms of music. It's a natural outcropping of everybody being like at least exposed to so many different things.
And
right?
there's been so much fragmentation in the last 100 years around genre, right? If you look at the types of music that people listened to 500 years ago, it was like two types of music.
Yeah.
It's like music for the aristocracy or folk music.
Right. Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Those were the two types of music. And then over the last 100 years, actually over the 1800s with the Industrial Revolution, you get like jazz, you get blues, you get romantic music, you get, there's like still some Baroque kind of stuff.
But even then, very regional, right?
Exactly.
Even you get Joplin's piano rolls. But it's being interpreted in your salon by the person in your family who can play piano, right? Like it's like, oh, are they doing it right? I don't know.
Exactly. And then over the last 100 years, now we're getting thousands of genres and subgenres of music and channels of expression and types of expression.
And also, by the way, even to the point where there's so much of it, it's like a very Baudelaire-esque, like the simulacra, where it's like the original of this is you don't even know anymore, right? What you're looking at, you're like, oh, this could be a direct quote or a direct reference to a thing.
Yep.
But you wouldn't even know it at this point because it gets so.
There's been so much
blended up.
evolution that the etymology of music is lost at this point now. It's kind of just it's infinitely fragmented. But what's amazing about this film, and to your point, is that it's almost like brings it all together.
Yeah, and that's I think the challenge of it is doing so. With any sort of cohesion, right? I think fundamentally the reason why I think that movie works is if you strip all of it away, right? There's a version of that movie that you probably have seen that probably would be at Sundance that is like a small 4-character drama about the daughter coming out and they're running a traditional family and the dad is dying and the mom in the center. Like, right, like that's an indie movie right there, right? Like you tell you exactly what it is. It's handheld. It's got like, exactly even what it looks like, right? But that movie is there in that movie, right? And so if you don't have that through line, there's nothing, right? And I think there's a lot of things too that I'm critical of where I'm like, yeah, there's nothing at the core of this, right? This is all just flash and bang and all, so who cares? So I think at the end of the day, right, like the only reason I think that movie can sustain itself and pull you through the runtime of it is that reason, because there's at the end of the day, there is just like a regular human story indie drama at the core of it. If you stripped all that away, that movie's still a good movie too, right? Like, because I think to me the most affecting scenes in that movie are the ones that are taken right when she runs out and has a conversation with the mom outside the laundromat. Like that's from that movie. That's from that other movie, right? And if you don't have that there's no emotional core. There's no emotional through line to it.
There's an interview where the Daniels are talking about how they crafted Everything Everywhere All at Once. And they talk about exactly what you're talking about, where there's this indie movie version of the story, but they wanted to include the blockbuster version of the story and have them be in the same movie. And it very much is a continuation of this idea of mashing up ideas and mashing up cultures. And I think in the clip he even references, Marvel plus the Sundance film. But we should watch that.
Yeah.
Wanted to make a movie that was just as big and loud and fun as a big blockbuster film, while also infusing it with as much sincerity and risk-taking and heart as our favorite indie film.
It was a very intentional choice that they made. to have that sincerity and heart at the middle of it that was the Sundance indie film.
Yeah.
But then to make it just as kung fu crazy and explosive
See,
as
I'll tell you the thing that really bums me about the American movie industry is that like world cinema's been doing, Korean cinema was doing that, right? It's like it feels like we are the thing that like I feel despair about in the American movie industry is just like how rigidly we hang on to certain things, right? Like I think when I look at I think when Parasite won, and you look at Parasite, and I think that the moment in that movie that stood out the most to me, weirdly enough, was in the theater. It's spoilers if you haven't seen the movie, but there's
I have
a
not
scene,
seen the movie.
This actually doesn't spoil
Okay,
anything.
great.
It's broad enough.
I'm waiting to see it to the right moment.
There's a scene where a character like holds up, this plan that they've been trying to do to get this other character fired, and he holds up this file piece of evidence, and he has this like really over the top maudlin look on his face, like he's finding the last piece of evidence that will convict the killer, and it's like hilarious. It's this build up, it's this whole sequence, and like the theater's in stitches. Then the next shot they cut to is the shot of a kid looking out the window, then it cuts to over the shoulder, and it's the two characters talking. The person who's hired this person and the person, and she's getting fired.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it worked. The thing worked. She's getting fired. And like the air in the theater goes from like this is one of the funniest like goofy expressions to like, oh gosh, like it just drops. You literally feel the entire room disappear. The air disappears out of it, and like that to me is something that like movies can do that we are so afraid of in commercial film. And like, because I think the note we get all the time over everything that we've ever done has always been, yeah, but the tone is weird. The tone is all over the place. And I'm like, Parasite's tone is all over the place. It's like it's a comedy up until that moment, and then all of a sudden you're bummed out because you're like, oh gosh, like you feel bad. And you're like, and it's everything. It's a horror movie a little bit. It's right. It's comedic. It's horror. It's a thriller. It's like it's doing everything, and it's nothing wrong with that. You can have tones that go all over the place. It's about how you move between them because life is like that, right? Like I think about this all the time when I think about like funerals. Like some of the like you would think that a funeral is like, oh, it's this very dour affair. Everyone's crying, stuff like that. Yeah, it is that. But also there's moments when like you remember something and you talk to your friends about it, and all of a sudden everyone's laughing for a second, or you're getting a meal afterwards and there's some like that's not incongruous. That's the way we process life around us, is that there's a mix of emotions, right? And like in Indian cinema, it's like masala cinema, the idea that you're taking flavors, all the flavors, and blending them together. And like that's, I think for the first time, especially with Everything Everywhere All at Once, it was like finally, I remember thinking like finally we have a critically acclaimed movie here in the States that is like homegrown, that is not afraid to take these sort of tonal risks and these tonal swings. Because like I see it everywhere else, but here it's like, well, when we have a badass superhero character, they gotta be badass the whole time. They're not crying, they're not getting punched, they're gonna be badass the whole time. And you're just like, this is so boring. This is such a juvenile
Why
approach
do we adhere to that stuff? Why are we so...
I think it's ego. Look, I think a big part of it's ego, right? Because we didn't always, right? Because I think about this a lot. Gladiator, one of the greatest blockbusters of all time. When Russell Crowe finds his like dead family, like look at that shot again. I still remember seeing this in theaters. He's like, there's like when he like kisses his wife's feet, he pulls back and there's like snot going from his nose. It's like disgusting. It's so raw. He's like ugly crying. I cannot think of a single mainstream actor, especially when you hear about the guys who are like, yeah, like, oh, I can't get punched in my movies. It's like, I don't know if any actor nowadays would be willing to be like, yeah, you're gonna ugly cry. There's gonna be snot coming out of your nose. But like that works. That's fantastic in that movie, and that sets up the whole movie. It's like, yeah, this guy, you can tell, right? There's emotion on display there. We weren't always afraid of it, but there's something I think about there's been a flattening of emotional sort of response where it's like everything is geared and engineered towards like a really specific thing, right? It's almost like a fast foodification of movies where it's like, listen, when you go to McDonald's, you're not going to get weird flavors. You're going to get like the thing you came there for. And I think that they're afraid of not making money back. They're afraid of people thinking that they're not cool. So what is the number one thing?
Cool.
It's not cool. It's not cool to have feelings.
In Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's that shot that the Daniels are in the film, and there's that one shot he plays the guy who
the guy's
sexual
getting
torture.
Yeah.
And it's like it's such a humiliating. Like, can you imagine casting yourself in your own movie as that part? Like that is such a fucking vulnerable move to do. It's the opposite of what you're talking about. It is total fearlessness.
Yes, it reminds me of the line. I don't know if you saw. It was Sing Street. Did you see Sing Street?
Didn't see
Sing
it.
Street was a very sort of autobiographical. The guy who directed Once, he did a sort of a period piece about his childhood. Essentially, it's a kid growing up and starting a band. You'll love it. It's
Okay.
like such a earnest, straight ahead movie.
Rock and roll is a risk. You risk being ridiculed.
Yes, that's the point of it. Like, why bother being the cool, cool suave guy? It's like, no. Take the risk. Because if you're not willing to be ridiculed, then what are you doing?
I love that.
That's like my favorite line.
I
It's such
love
a
that
good line.
because honestly, that's what I love about my favorite creators too.
Yeah.
Like my favorite creative people in the world do something that no one else is doing, and honestly makes them look a little odd or weird.
Yeah.
Like it's a fearlessness about my own identity and who
Yeah.
I am and my comfort with myself and the
Yeah.
fact that look, this is fucking who this
Yeah.
is me.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, fuck you. Those are my favorite artists. I think
So,
it's like the
But isn't that so fascinating that right now, right, like that particular impulse feels so at odds to why am I on Instagram? I want likes. I want to be able to get metrics. I want people to see, right? Like those two things are at war right now, I think, is that this sort of artistic sensibility of willing to kind of put yourself at risk and that kind of at risk of ridicule, and also being like, but all the indicators of success is popularity and people liking you, right? Like all of this other stuff is just so at odds with that, which I hate right now.
I hate it too. The cultural, societal incentive is to blend in, to get the likes, to conform, to say the thing, more so than ever before in history, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
there's
think so.
instantaneous feedback about how well you're blending in with what everybody else wants and expects.
Or specifically what the amalgamation of people's tastes end up as, right? Like, and it's invisible, right? I think that like there's an invisible guiding force that the sort of various content curation algorithms impose, right? And it's not, I would say it's weird because it's like, it really is kind of like, it's not one person's desire, right? Or it's also not necessarily, it's this weird blend of everyone's kind of desires put together is this, and to me, it's all just shoveling us towards the same
Blended average.
Yeah, blended average conformity is
Yes.
where we're headed, and
Yes.
where everything seems to be going. And like, I hate that.
I hate
That's
it
so
too.
boring.
And the best art breaks out of that.
Yeah.
Like the thing that I just love about everything all at once, the hot dog fingers.
And that to me is why Daniels are like next level, is because they're if they have like one strong suit, their strong suit is going, and this is in all of their work, it's taking the absurd all the way around the dial until it comes back to profound again, right? Like profound and absurd over here, they take absurd and push it all the way back around until the channel comes back around and hits profound. And I think that like it shows up in Interesting Ball, which is like one of my favorite Vimeo shorts that they did.
We're gonna get a band back for you, bro. You guys would do that for me? Hell yeah!
And if you're trying to get anyone into Daniels, I'm like, watch Interesting Ball first. If your friend is like, I thought that was hilarious, you're good to show them everything else. If they're like, that was weird and stupid and I hated it, you're like, it's okay. You can skip Swiss Army Man. Just don't worry about Swiss Army Man. Although I love Swiss Army Man. Secretly, I love Swiss Army Man more than Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I haven't seen it. I need to see
Swiss
that one
Army
too.
Man is like sublime for me because it's so weird.
It's moving! What's happening?
Manny, I think your Wang is guiding us home.
And it's them doing this magic trick that they do with hot dog fingers, which is going all the way through absurd and coming around again and arriving at profundity.
It's also just one of those ideas that I think most people would cut.
Oh, 100%.
They
would
comes out of their
edit
mouth.
themselves out. Yeah.
It's like a funny, silly thing. Okay, now let's have the real writers section,
Yeah,
brainstorm
yeah.
section. Let's figure out the right idea.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they explore it and keep it in there, and then to put all the budget and production and time and energy behind something that absurd, in and of itself, that is an amazing risk and
That
choice.
always cracks me up. Whenever, again, nothing gets me better than effort towards a stupid joke.
Yes!
Like the more effort that goes into a dumb fucking joke, the better that joke is. I remember we were talking about, this is when we were doing video in high school, we had this gag as written, it was, we want pizza in a can. It was like pizza, and we're describing it to our art department. We're like, oh, we want pizza inside like a tennis ball thing, and it comes out of the vending machine. And it was just like, okay, we need to rig a vending machine. okay, we need the art for it. We need to figure out it was like so much effort. It was like grown adults' time and money was spent on like, and we eventually calculated it out where it's like, we should just do some back of envelope math. It was like each one of those cans was like $300 worth of like human effort. And we're like, this is a $300 joke. We can put an exact price tag on this joke. Most jokes, they say it's a $0 joke because it's a dialogue thing. This is specifically a $300 to $350 joke. And we're like, it's so fucking worth it though. Like for this stupid thing that's literally like a gag. You just opens it, eats it, that's it. Like all of that for just this little thing. We're like, yes, you put the effort in something dumb. It's so much funnier to me. Like seeing the joke all the way through. Like, yeah.
What do you think we can do? Because I find myself, I have this conversation about the importance of being yourself.
What you're asking is how do you kickstart an entirely new countercultural movement?
That's what I'm. Or actually, I don't even care about the movement. Like, I just want to do it for myself. I just want to break out of the pressure and the molding and the.
I think
you must be exactly this way.
I think it's incredibly difficult if what you do ends up in one of these platforms. I think it's almost impossible to do that, which is partly why I got into pottery, because there's like, what are you gonna do with pottery? Here's why I love pottery. It's like it's so outside the realm of like, I'll take pictures, I'll put it on Instagram.
I've seen them; they're beautiful pots.
But here's the thing, and honestly, I think this is like I'm so thankful that we blew up on YouTube when we did, and not right now, because having done that earlier, the feeling I have now is like, I feel a little bit like I've kind of seen what it is to be like super popular on that front. I'm like, all right, I've seen it, I've experienced it. Now don't worry. Like literally, I remember it was like I posted something like twice, and someone's like, oh hey, you should space it out a little more because that way your likes don't like overlap. I was like, I literally don't care, don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'll post whatever I want whenever I want because I'm free. I feel like I'm free from this, but like I feel like that's so difficult. Like again, I think I'm in a very weird case to be able to say that, but like I don't know how you break out of it, man. I think you have to reject every platform that you can put it on. I think you show your work at farmers markets for 10 years. I don't know. I don't know how you break out of it because the way people find and consume things is so pervasive and integrated with our living experience. I don't know how you break out of it.
So amazing that you don't give a fuck about 2 likes in a row on 2 comments or whatever. You don't have to deal with the algorithm. You're not
I'll
optimizing.
post as much as I want whenever I want.
You're post algorithm.
Yeah.
You're beyond algorithm. But Dungeons and Daddies is still going, which is a podcast that's reaching people.
Yeah.
That's on the treadmill. That's episodic. So what's different about that versus the Instagram?
I think, and this is partly I think about podcasts specifically, which is podcasts are such like I think there's 2 things in the world that are impossible. Number 1 is getting someone to watch a Netflix show. Number 2 is getting someone to listen to your podcast. Like impossible. The number of times you've talked to a friend of yours, have you seen it yet? And they're like, no. You're like, okay, I guess. Fuck me, I guess. I liked it, but sure. By the way, if you want to talk about like a how to win friends and influence people trick for the 21st century, our DM Anthony does this, and I can tell you the effect is incredible. Here's all he does. The minute someone recommends him a show, that night he goes and watches it. Like if they say a movie you should see, he'll just like, cool, I'm gonna carve out some time, I'm gonna watch it. And then the next time you see him, he says, I saw the movie, and then he has thoughts and like right away. Like since nobody does that, you're like, it literally is the feeling of like, oh my gosh, you care about my stuff. And like it is incredible. I guess maybe the closest thing I've seen to a social cheat code in this time is to just pay attention to people's Netflix and book and podcast recommendations. I'm telling you, if you recommend a thing and the next time you see them, they say like, oh my gosh, I saw this and blah, blah. And then the hack to that, this corollary hack, is a friend of mine also does. She does this thing where she goes like, you really need to see this show. There's a character in the second episode that reminds me so much of you. And then you're like, well, now I gotta see who this is. And then every single time they're like, who are you talking about? They're like, nah, I just said that to get you to watch the show.
What surfaces and what gets discovery and what rides the waves of the platforms and the changes that they make to search and discovery and ranking and algorithms. I find it affects my work and my output. Now, I don't want it to.
I think that
but it has this inevitable shaping.
So here's the thing, right? So to an extent, I think, right, there's always a question of how will an audience, because I think like unless you're really truly just making art for yourself, which, there are people out there who do that, right? You sometimes hear about the guys who were like die and then they open up their apartment and they're like, there was 10,000 weird paintings and this guy wrote a whole, and scribbled on the walls and stuff like that. This sort of like weird outsider art stuff, which is absolutely out there. But I think like for a lot of us, there is an idea of like, I'd like someone to see this. I'd like eyeballs on this, right? I think that's a very human thing to have. And so it is tempered by, okay, well, where are these eyeballs now? Well, they're finding it from this way. And I think we all, I think, naturally adjust how we make things. I don't know. I don't know if you can be divorced entirely from the social and economic context of art, because it's always kind of been out there the moment like patronage showed up, right?
And this is I think the age-old struggle that artists have, right? It's the sophomore album problem. It's, now there's this audience here, and I'm making something for this existing audience as opposed to just now making something by myself in my garage. And there's all this pressure, and there's the label, and we got to make something that's marketable, and the label wants this BPM, and I need to write faster songs, and then suddenly the magic disappears because instead of just being back in your tiny little room where you were self-expressing truly and being a true version of yourself, it's this thing that is molded and sculpted and filtered and whittled down until it's close to the average.
Yeah, I think there's only one answer, is that you have to be a little troll weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, you have to just be a little weird guy.
Yeah.
Like, the whole time. Like, you gotta be a little weird dude.
I love that.
Like, that's the only way you can survive,
because
I think.
You know what's great about that? Like,
because nobody bothers you when you're a little weirdo.
Lewis Cole. He's one of my favorite, right? What a fucking weirdo.
Oh, weird guy.
He's a little troll weirdo.
Oh, weird guy.
Man, the shit he makes is so hot.
Good beats, though.
Oh, God, but
Good
he's
horns.
such a weirdo. But that's it. I think you gotta just be like, look, I am weird.
Yeah.
I'm a weirdo.
You gotta put that out there. I think, I'll put it this way. I do wish there were more just bizarro weirdo types.
Yes, me too.
There. And again, the weirdos are out there.
They're out there.
You just
need
gotta
to
be
find
one
them.
yourself.
Exactly. You gotta be a weirdo magnet.